The RS6 is a legend of the auto industry. Not because it links to Audi Sport's origins and the first ever fast estate, etc. with the RS2. No one even really remembers that in the public. But more the fact that this car, over the years, has garnered a reputation of being a supercar hiding under the mild-mannered disguise of a standard family estate. I mean, who can forget the time that it borrowed a V10 engine from Lamborghini? No one has. So when you ask Joe Bloggs what is the fastest super wagon, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna say the RS6 because it's the meanest looking, it's allegedly the most powerful, and it's the coolest to own. However, when I drove it last time, it left me a little bit cold. I found it to be not as dynamic as the rivals, not as fast as the rivals. I didn't enjoy the emotion of the engine, and within that week, I was just kind of left thinking, this is a car that's seriously overhyped. And I was very honest about that. That was even the title of the video. Fast forward to a few months ago when I get an email from Audi Press in the UK offering me the car over an extended loan period of 3 months. Now, despite my opinion, you can imagine, I've never responded to an email quicker saying yes, because the truth of the fact is that a singular week with a car is great in highlighting like performance and other singular topics, but sometimes can miss the point of ownership completely, and you really need an extended time to understand a car and to get to grips with it. So I'm going to take this as a fresh review, but from the perspective of having lived with this car as a performance daily for 3 months. What have I learnt and what can I impart to you guys? And as for the future of this range, I'm also going to fill you in today on some hugely important Audi news, including the facelift of the A6, the new RS6 that's coming, a sedan version that's been spotted for the first time, and we're also going to talk about the A6 full EV. So loads to discuss. So let's dive in and check out this, the RS6 Avant. So guys, today's episode of RBR is sponsored by returning sponsor, The Ridge, the company that redefined our expectations of the wallet. And they're back with an absolutely awesome new edition, which is the first ever pure leather Ridge wallet. Now I'm gonna open these up. Let's see what the leather ones are like versus the standard one. So guys, I've got 2 versions of the Ridge leather wallet here. One is the brown leather version, which is gorgeous, and the other is midnight black. Let's get this open. Oh, wow. That is lovely, look at that. And this has had 18 months of development. It's the same great design as our classic. There's my awesome forged carbon with the red details, which was such an amazing version that they did. But this brown leather, this has been designed so it patinas as well, really well. You can replace the screws, lifetime warranty, just like your other Ridge products. You can fit your cash in here. And of course, this has the same great RFID blocking technology to protect your cards from wireless thieves. Pop in my cards into the leather one as well. Doesn't bulge out of your pocket like a standard wallet either. So guys, that's the new Ridge leather wallet. I can't wait to see what it looks like when it ages. It's got that great 99-day test drive is all that you can take. And the same lifetime warranty, because Ridge are so confident about their products. Use the link ridge.com/RBR. Only the link will work, so make sure you go to that link, ridge.com/RBR. You'll get a great deal on these. It's the perfect gift for yourself or someone that you care for because it is long lasting and it's going to be used every day. So a huge thanks to Ridge. Thank you guys for supporting our regular sponsors as well. Now let's get back to the episode. So my friends, this pre-facelift C8 RS6, it's a car that's been designed with zero compromise. The only thing that remains from the standard A6 is the bonnet and the rear boot lid. Everything else is completely unique to this performance version of the car. In fact, even the lights aren't from the A6. They're instead from the A7, which give it a totally different look to the standard variant of the car. And it's that look, not only just on the front with the biggest Audi grille you'll ever find, but still tastefully designed and what kind of looks like, I don't know, all I can describe it as samurai swords sitting on the side of the bumpers there, looking incredible. And then, of course, the rear wheel arches, which give this car its signature stance. I mean, this has got to be the best looking 4-door on the planet, arguably. That is half the battle won for most people, and it's why most people will ignore people like me who are talking about intensive performance, and they'll just focus on the fact that this just looks absolutely bloody amazing. And I actually quite like the spec that we have today from Audi UK as well. The wheels aren't your standard ones that you always see on every RS6. I actually quite like these. They're in full silver, and I don't know, they have kind of a production wheel design, like a spy shot design that just kind of jives well with me. I love the color. It absolutely just makes me weak in the knees. Just finishes off what is an incredible looking estate anyway. Interestingly, when you're watching this video, bear in mind that this is actually quite a low spec RS6, so you're still going to get a lot of bang for buck, as you'll see, from a low spec car. Then we come to what's powering it. Of course, you've got the trusty VAR Group V8 as shared with Porsche, etc., etc. Audi's own tune of it in this 592 brake horsepower, 800 Newton meters, and a 0 to 60 of 3.6 seconds, which all sounds really, really slow in this day and age. Only a couple of years later, now with our EVs all doing, you know, 2 second this and other performance sedans doing 3 second something else, it does seem a little bit slow, and I totally get that. But we will see, we'll unpack that as we drive it. You know, let's not write it off just yet. All of that goes to the famed Quattro system, which allows about 85% power to go to the rear. It's a bit of an age system now, particularly versus rivals like E63 and M5, which can be fully variable, send all the power to the rear with drift mode, etc. And then we have, on our car today, we've got the standard RS Sport air suspension. You can get a level higher with adaptive three-way suspension as well, and rear wheel steer. Now, looking at those figures on the face of it, it's 80 kg heavier than its rivals. It's slower than them, it's not as dynamic as them, the tech is kind of behind. Don't write it off just yet, because what's on paper is not as important as the living experience. Plus, there is also now a new version that you can buy of this car called the RS6 Performance that I'll be testing very, very soon on the channel. And that has got an upgraded V8 that has got 621 brake horsepower, 850 Newton meters, and a 0 to 60 of 3.4 seconds. So much closer to the rivals, and we'll soon see what that car is like. Now, as for the future of the A6 and the RS models, we have spotted a RS7 sedan, or a RS6 sedan, basically a sedan version of the RS6, all right? And it looks incredible. It's got the same mean front end with the A7 lights and the wide front and the huge grille. More exciting than that, it's got the wide arches of the RS6, but in a sedan. We haven't had one of these since the C6 RS6, okay? We're all desperate for a proper M5 rival from Audi Sport, and it looks like we are going to get one. So that's great. Of course, we'll probably have an RS6. Well, this one appears to have a completely different front end to our current car, a different wing as well, and a huge spoiler on the rear lid, indicating that this might be a higher performance version than we've had so far. Should be awesome. Hoping that the V8 will come back in, maybe with some hybrid assistance on this occasion, and I'm hoping for an updated Quattro system. Let's see, let's see. Now, in terms of the future for both the A6 and more importantly the RS models, now all combustion Audi models will have odd numbers. So the A6 will be renamed to the A7, and similarly the A4 will be renamed to the A5. Are you still with me? Good. Then the RS6, the future one, will be an e-tron. We know that the A6 is coming in e-tron form, probably going to look very similar to the concept A6 e-tron, which I thought was a fabulous looking car, and that will come in both sedan and in Avant. Allegedly, we're looking at kind of a 400-mile WLTP range, which is really good, really aerodynamic, 0.22 apparently, which is the same as all the EQ cars from Mercedes, etc., but an actually really handsome looking Audi. More interesting than that, Audi's bosses were saying that they showed design versions of the RS version, so the RS6 e-tron, to a bunch of Audi's managers, and they all left extremely excited after a huge round of applause. You know, it should be some pretty exciting EVs coming with some more heritage names like RS6 in the future. Excited about all of that. But now, let's talk about living with this version of the RS6, because I think this can have a lot of bang for buck. Some people might forget about it with these future cars coming, but living with this has been quite interesting. It's got no shortage of rivals just in my own house, okay? I've got my Taycan 4S Sport Turismo, fantastic speed wagon, but an EV. I've got the E63S Final Edition, again, you know, it was the king of Nürburgring for about 7-8 years, fantastic car. But you know what? The RS6 has acquitted itself really, really well during this period. A large part of that has been the emotion, surprisingly. A big change from 2 years ago. The Audi actually sounding really, I'll get onto that when I drive it, so bear with me. But I actually moved house during this period. This is my new house that I'm doing a video here for one of the first times. And this car was so useful when it came to, you know, moving from one house to the other, going to IKEA and filling the boot. And I even took it to the dump a few times because look, is it really a press long-term loaner if you don't take it to the rubbish dump and talk about it? Of course it isn't. So in that sense, it was a great car, and I kept coming back to the key because of the emotional element, and that's so important, and just because of how cool it looks. Now in terms of living with it, just look at that to begin with. That sight on your driveway, that's what we all love about the RS6. It's just, you know, it's such a supercar. Genuinely, with just, you know, just an Avant roof on it. It looks amazing and does not look out of place, you know, next to something like, even like the GT Black Series. It's a fabulous, fabulous looking car. And then you see the width, just the pure width on the front end with those, like I said, samurai katanas almost embedded into the front. And then the super, super wide and just enormous wheel arches with almost no body around them. Look at the ratio compared to the body. Insane. And I actually really like these wheels. I know they're quite standard versus the ones that you normally get in RS, but they were a nice change. And I think they look amazing. Just to go back on stance again, it just looks so, so powerful. I mean, those cuts that you get in the side sills there, no other rival does anything even close to that. It makes this car so special. The Avant roofline is the best of any performance wagon as well, so sharp. You've got even, you know, with your roof rails on there finished in aluminium, looking great. And then that epic rear view, the huge, huge rear wheel arches, just finishing the look of the RS6. Absolutely brilliant. Then practicality wise, for me, it's really important as a family man to have lots of space for my kids, and my toddler loves sitting in this car because look how much space he's got. Brilliant. Even, you know, without the pan roof, that's great. And generally a really comfortable interior. In terms of the actual experience with the car, things that I hated, I want to go over first. First of all, the drive select, which is either this button or the RS mode here. They need something a bit more intuitive. Like M have the fantastic drive unit here where you can change everything on the fly. AMG have their digital versions, which are amazing. With Audi, you need to go into drive select here, and then you get the menus come up in here where you can either choose from the modes on the left, or you can configure RS1 or RS2. And it's just too much. I don't want to be using this that much in order to get what I want. It's a little bit frustrating, and I think they need to come into the digital world now and bring something more exciting in how to change the RS cars' modes in these cars. What I do like about it is that it's a slim steering wheel, the buttons are nice, the paddle shifters are decent as well, so in terms of actual usability it's good. And then you've got the system itself, which it's all touch based, so all of your seat heating, ventilating, climate control at the bottom has to be done with touch, which I've gotten used to because I've gotten used to my Taycan, which is a very similar system. But I think this is actually easier to use in terms of touching than the Porsches because all the buttons are a little bit bigger. That being said, the actual logic of the system, very difficult to get to terms with, where the settings are for various things. Like you can find stuff like ambient lighting quite easily, but I couldn't find any way to turn off the lane assist, which I'll go into later while we're driving. Things like that are actually really quite difficult to find. You've got few and far between in terms of RS screens as well. So you've got RS monitor, and that's about it. You'll see later how launch control, you know, not as intuitive as other cars as well. So that element, that RS element needs to come more into these screens, and generally they need to improve this. But as for the things that I loved in this car, well, there's actually a lot of them. Let's start with my favorite one, which is the light show on the outside. Audi always smash it with lights, don't they? So the front lights when you turn the car on, the rear lights when you're turning the car on and off as well, and it still looks fantastic. You get the RS logos projected from the door sills as well, which look really good. The other thing I love is the structure of the whole dashboard. It's still so modern and so relevant. I love the way the vents flow here. I love the whole structure that's very driver focused, all coming towards you here. This is all great, and the material finish, it's like a tank, you know, no dissimilar to like Porsche. I don't like the seats. The seats are boring compared to the M seats, compared to the AMG seats. They're just, you know, a generation behind in this. They're very comfortable and they're stitched nicely with the RS logo, etc., but just not up to that level. I love actually having the gear stick here. I love the fact that it's so significant in size, kind of like a, you know, Starship Enterprise type engage thing. I like the fact you can knock it this way into manual as well, which is good. Push it down for your sport mode as well. All of that is nice. Nice that we have that, and I hope they keep a significant one going into the future as well. I love the fact that we've got a really good 360-degree camera, which for such a wide car is so important. You need a good 360 camera. This one, of course, comes with the whole 3D view, so you can see exactly what's around you. And again, you know, they were leading the way in this before other people were doing this. Now it's kind of common, but... And then, what I love is the soundtrack. This has got Audi's performance exhaust system for the RS6, and it just sounds brilliant. Particularly cold start in the morning, and then I'll talk about it as we're driving. I'm going to spoil that because it's great. But yeah, the exhaust system is fantastic. So let's go out now. I need to relay to you what it's been like living with this for 3 months. It's a totally different experience, totally different to that 1 week blast that we usually do. This is when you live with it, you appreciate some things, you don't like some things, but you really get the full picture of the car. So leaving the house every morning, an absolute joy thanks to just the soundtrack of this car, which is epic. Listen to that. It's that low frequency rumble that I've just been addicted to. Like I said, I've got other similar cars in my house, but I was drawn to this because of that pure emotional feeling, and that's something that we've lost in these other cars, like the E63 specifically, in the last 2 years, thanks to regulations, etc. It's just not as exciting. Back when I drove the car 2 years ago, that wasn't the case, and rivals were a bit louder, etc., etc. But now, on a more even playing field, the RS6 sounds great. And that's really important to me. When you're spending this level of money, the car's got to sound good. And you know, that's driving in just the completely normal mode. If we shift this now into RS2, yeah, there's not lots of pops and bangs and stuff, but the rumble is strong, and you know, you get the feeling that you're driving a car that's worth its money. I've got a lot of value towards soundtrack. I think it's just so important for a performance car like this. That's why something like the new C63 with the 4-cylinder, who's going to want to spend 100k plus on a car like that with no emotion? Whereas, you know, this thing at pretty similar price, so much more exciting. It sounds, you know, as good if not better than the rivals, and really gives it an edge, and it's really important in this part of the performance market. Now, of course, on launch control, let's try this out. Such good grip, even in the wet. I've consistently timed this car at like 3.5 to 3.6 seconds, which is damn good for a car of this size. I actually like playing around with the gearbox on this car in RS2 mode. You know, it's comparable to the M3 Touring shifts, to be honest. Now that car has to also deal with a torque converter rather than DCT. And this acquits itself pretty well on gear changes, I must say. Where it all went a little bit wrong last time for me, other than the sound, was the handling element. We all know that the RS6's engine sits a little bit, you know, further in front of its front axle, and because of that, the amount of force being transferred across is like, you know, having a passenger sitting on the bonnet, which is why you get all this stuff about understeer, etc. It's funny actually how clearly visible it is here in the RS monitor screen as well, with the engine right in front of the wheels. But this is why you keep hearing about all this understeer stuff with Audis. It's not as dramatic as some journalists make it out to be. You really have to push the car, particularly in how they've done the RS6. It's actually a very dynamic car. But exist it does, so when you're really pushing the car, you will feel that understeer. I don't mind that as much, because that's something, as a driver, when you get used to the way that a car handles, you can kind of, you know, begin to predict it and understand how to point the nose in. But that wasn't it. The thing that got me was the steering. That was just too kind of numb and light. I don't mind the understeer, but the steering bothers me, because you can't build up the confidence of where you know the wheels are, etc. And I kind of made that clear that it's too light, it's too wishy-washy. However, living with the car, I found in reality that's not the type of driving you actually do with a super wagon. It is more point and shoot to where you want to go, and then when you do get some B roads, yes, you're pushing it, but you're not going intense to the point where, you know, that becomes a hindersome element. So I know we all get kind of carried away as performance drivers about these things, but when I'm weighing it up against the emotional connection you have with this car, thanks to its looks, thanks to the soundtrack, and the heritage and everything about it, that kind of falls to the back because you still have fun while driving. And you know, it's got good power, the speed, the agility, it's all there. Yeah, you can't extract it as much as the rivals, but equally the rivals just don't excite you as much as this car half the time. And the other thing about this car that I love, that as a wagon, even though it's got the low stance, it's got the ground clearance, and because of that, it's kind of become a take anywhere, do anything car. So you know, you want to mount a curve, go over across some uneven terrain, etc. It feels like a tank that will just deal with anything in front of it, which is not the case for all performance wagons. You know, which is not dissimilar to a nice SUV, but the fact you can do it in a wagon makes the case for SUVs even less attractive for me. And like I said, dealing with anything, it's got that all-year-round viability thanks to Quattro, but the Quattro system's so old now, isn't it? It's not got that full variability that all the rivals do, either switching into rear-wheel drive like E63 and M5, or just having the ability to put all the power to the rear, even like lesser cars like the 53 AMGs. And the problem with that is this only has a bias of up to 85% on the rear, which is a bit pants. And again, like the steering, doesn't really come into it day to day because you're not doing that type of driving, frankly speaking. Now, one thing that's driven me mad in this car is the lane assistance thing, which I cannot find a way to turn off, as I said, and it's so intrusive when you want to take liberties a little bit with where the road is. It just kicks you straight back into the lane, particularly when you're driving a bit faster, you know, through some country lanes, and you want to, you know, drive in the line that you want to drive. It gets in the way all the time, and it doesn't matter what mode you're in. And the only thing that I can find to turn it off is to literally traction control off it, then it disappears, which is not ideal all the time. The other thing that I've been really surprised about this car, living with it for 3 months, was the miles per gallon on longer trips, getting close to 30 mpg, which again I don't kind of expect of a really, really powerful performance car like this. Like my E63, you know, maybe it's still a young engine at the moment, but it's not getting, you know, even past 25 mpg at the moment, whereas this manages it quite easily if you're driving sensible, so that's great. I've also loved how comfortable this car is with just the standard air suspension that you get in the RS6. It's so enjoyable to drive just normally and slowly. You have got quite a bit of road noise coming through because of, you know, size of the wheels and the lack of insulation, but that's part of kind of the super wagon experience, and you're just more likely to pick up the keys for menial tasks when it's more comfortable, so I've liked that element. And again, I love the sound, I love the speed, I love the stance, I love the heritage. I don't think you'll need to get the performance, just any of these, you know, C8, C7, whatever, these are going to acquit themselves well in the future. When the hybrids take over, you're going to forget all of the niggles that we have with this car, and you're just going to love it for the character and the emotion that it has. Mark my words and remember what I'm saying to you today, because having had it for 3 months, I'm really going to miss it when it goes. If you can get one, if you can drive one, I would thoroughly recommend it. It's a fantastic daily. It's as good as you've heard. Yes, intense wise, it cannot match those rivals, but in other things, it just does the job better. And really, I will personally apologise to you if it does not get under your skin in that regard. And that all being said, I can't wait to drive the RS6 Performance, which should improve on a lot of these things and just make it the ultimate wagon. So guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this second look at the RS6. Please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.